You ever notice how people only start looking back when it's too late? That eerie silence that follows after the damage is done. That's not guilt. It's fear. Fear of what you're becoming. You see, they thought they were breaking you, turning you into nothing more than background noise in their circus of chaos. But you didn't break. You shifted. You evolved. They laughed when you gave, mocked when you cared, and walked away when you bled. But here's the part they didn't calculate. The aftermath. That haunting silence. That cold stare. That one smile. Oh, that damn smile. That's what eats them alive at night. That's what turns their victories into nightmares. You see, people don't remember the punches they threw or the lies they spread. They remember how calm you looked when you stopped reacting. And I mean it, really looked like you weren't even human anymore. Just a shadow walking away, wearing a grin they didn't understand. You know why it haunts them? Because you weren't supposed to survive. You weren't supposed to walk again after what they did. They crafted your downfall like artists sculpting a masterpiece of failure. They painted you as weak, desperate, emotional, too kind. And what did you do? You made peace with the pain. You danced in the fire they set for you. And when it didn't burn you, when you walked out with that smile, that's when they cracked. That's when their little games lost flavor. Because you were never their victim. No, you were the proof that pain can be elegant and destruction can be silent. That smile, it's not for happiness. It's a scar wearing lipstick. It's your proof that you saw hell and came back with manners. They think silence means surrender. They think a soft laugh means you've moved on. They're wrong. It means you've accepted the war, sharpened your soul, and decided to enjoy the view while they self-destruct. See, when you smile after betrayal, they panic. Because they know damn well they didn't fix you. They forged you. They fed you poison thinking you'd die slowly. Instead, you adapted. You became the antidote. You became what they feared most, a soul that knows pain but doesn't flinch anymore. That's rare. That's powerful. And that scares the hell out of cowards. Let me break this down for you. People love to test the limits of someone kind. They push, poke, manipulate, because they assume kindness is weakness. But here's the paradox. They only realize how powerful kindness was when it turns to indifference. That moment you stopped explaining yourself, that was the moment the game ended. The moment you looked at their chaos and said nothing, that was the bullet. That smile you gave when they expected you to beg, that was the funeral. You think they moved on? Nah, they're haunted. Haunted by the ease in your tone, haunted by how you stopped calling, haunted by how you rebuilt your life without leaving breadcrumbs. That's why they stalk in silence, watch your stories, lurk in shadows. Because what they tried to break is now walking with a grin. And that's terrifying. That's justice. You don't need revenge. You are the revenge. Your existence, your growth, your calm, it's the echo they hear every time they lie down pretending they're unbothered. But deep down, they know. They feel it. They feel you becoming everything they said you'd never be. Every day you rise in silence is another day their lies lose value. Every success you touch, every new version of you, every moment of peace you find is a reminder that their power was an illusion. That's what burns. That's what makes them flinch at your name. Not because you yelled, not because you fought back, but because you smiled. Because you smiled like you didn't need them. Because you smiled like they never mattered. And you know what? They didn't. They were a chapter, not your ending. And they'll have to live with that forever. You know the most twisted part of it all? They were never really playing fair. From the beginning, they knew exactly what they were doing. That fake kindness, that temporary attention, the sudden warmth out of nowhere. It was a setup, a performance. They used your loyalty like a leash, gave you just enough hope to keep you close, just enough lies to keep you confused, and just enough silence to make you doubt yourself. That's how manipulators operate. They don't attack you with fists. They slice you with silence. They don't scream at you. They ignore you until you start questioning your own worth. And when you finally snap and say, "What's wrong?" they look at you like you're the crazy one. That's the trick. That's how they flip the mirror. They injure you, then shame you for bleeding. But here's the part they never anticipated: healing. They didn't think you'd pick yourself up. They never imagined you'd stop explaining, stop waiting, stop caring. That smile, that's the part that ruins them, because it means they failed. It means their game didn't work. It means they underestimated you. You became the thing they swore you could never be, untouchable. Not because you have no emotions, but because you learned to guard them like treasure. You still feel. You still remember. But you don't hand your heart out like free samples anymore. You don't beg for validation. You don't bend anymore. That's what makes your smile so dangerous. It's not happy. It's healed. And healing terrifies the wicked. Because healed people don't play. Healed people don't chase. Healed people look at you once and decide if you're worth their silence or their smile. And if they smile at you after everything you've done, run. That smile isn't forgiveness. It's farewell. Let me tell you something real. Brutally real. The same people who laughed when you fell will act confused when you rise. They'll say you changed. Of course you did. What did they expect? That you'd stay shattered for their entertainment? That you'd remain the soft, available, broken version of yourself so they could keep feeling powerful? No. You evolved. You built armor out of every insult. You sharpened your vision with every betrayal. And now you walk differently. You talk differently. You choose differently. Because pain has a way of teaching what peace never could. You stopped answering calls that felt like traps. You stopped watering relationships that never grew. You learned the art of walking away without announcements. That scares people, because they were counting on your weakness. They were depending on your love to keep chasing, your loyalty to keep tolerating. But when you went quiet, when you started smiling like you already knew the ending, that's when they panicked. You see, most people don't change until they feel your absence. They don't respect you until you stop explaining. And they don't fear you until they see you thriving without them. That's the ugly truth. Some people only realize your value when your silence replaces your presence. But that's their burden to carry, not yours. You smiled, and now they're stuck with the ghost of your laughter. You didn't lose them. They lost access to you. And access is a privilege they spat on. They mistook your time for desperation. They saw your consistency and assumed it was neediness. They confused your love for weakness, but what they didn't understand is that you were choosing them, not needing them. That's a dangerous mistake, because when someone like you chooses to walk away, there's no turning back. You don't half leave. You vanish, quietly, gracefully, with a damn smile. And that smile, that's what chokes them every time they think about you. It's not the words you didn't say. It's the ones they'll never hear again. That's the pain they earned. You didn't punish them. Life did. And it's not done yet. You ever seen guilt in someone's eyes after they realize they broke something they'll never find again? It's not loud. It's not theatrical. It's a slow decay, a twitch in the smile, a hesitation in their tone, a nervous check of your profile at 2 a.m. when they swore they never cared. That's what your smile does to them. It rewrites the memory. Suddenly, you're not the clingy one. You're the one they wish they'd clung to. You're not the emotional one. You're the one who truly felt. And they were just playing. But the game's over now. And guess who's still standing? You. And you're not screaming. You're not seeking revenge. You're just silent, distant, better. And it's that version of you that eats them alive. Because when you finally realize your worth, it creates a ripple in every lie they told themselves. They said you were replaceable. Turns out you weren't. They said you were too much. Turns out you were more than enough. They told their friends you'd beg. Turns out you vanished. And now they sit there, pretending to be unbothered, while their world spins every time your name comes up. That's what they deserve. Not a war, not a scream, just distance. Cold, beautiful, surgical distance. Let them wonder. Let them feel the ache of what if. Let them relive the moments they played God with your emotions. because they'll never get to touch your peace again. They lost that privilege when they mistook your love for weakness. You smiled, and now they'll never sleep the same again. And don't you dare look back. Don't you dare question your silence. You gave everything they didn't deserve. You loved through their lies. You stayed when they were already planning their exit. You explained yourself to people who only listened to respond, never to understand. And when you broke, you apologized for bleeding on the floor they cracked. But look at you now, breathing, earning, smiling, existing like they never mattered. That's not ego, that's survival. You built something they'll never touch again, a version of you that doesn't shrink to fit in anyone's shadow. That's priceless. They can gossip, lie, mock your pain, but they can't fake what you've become. Because you don't wear revenge on your face, you wear healing. And it glows. It confuses them. They expected you to stay bitter. They expected breakdowns. But all they got was a smile. And that smile? It's laced with everything you've survived. Every night you cried. Every moment you were misunderstood. Every silent scream you buried. That's why it haunts them. It's a graveyard of everything they tried to kill, standing tall on your lips. You see, there's something dangerous about a soul that's been destroyed and rebuilt without applause. It walks differently, talks differently. It no longer flinches when people threaten to leave, because it has already learned that peace comes from within, not from those who only love you when it's convenient. And when that kind of soul smiles, it's a declaration, a warning, a promise. It says, I remember what you did, and I healed anyway. And they can't handle that, because their power only existed in your pain. Now that you're calm, now that you laugh, it's over. You flipped the game without saying a word. You walked away and became the storm. And the funny part? They still don't know what hit them. They don't understand how the same person they mocked became the version they now miss. That's the part that'll rot them from the inside. Because your smile is the last thing they expected, and the only thing they'll never forget. You know what's really poetic? It's not that you survived, it's how you did it. Quietly, no announcements, no dramatic exits, just silence, followed by transformation. You didn't post your pain, you planted it. And now you're blooming in places they never thought you'd reach. See, people like that, they're addicted to your reaction. They don't care about resolution. They care about control. That's why your silence kills louder than your screams ever could. That's why your smile became a weapon sharper than anything they threw your way. You're not the same anymore. You're colder, smarter, softer in tone, but sharper in judgment. You no longer open your doors for everyone knocking. You no longer hand your time out like cheap candy. You've become intentional, scarred but focused, hurt but holy. You turned every wound into wisdom, and that wisdom And that's what keeps them up at night. Because now they see the truth. You weren't the one breaking. You were building. You weren't falling apart. You were coming together. And that's terrifying to people who thought they had the blueprint to your destruction. They expected chaos. Instead, they got elegance. They expected rage. Instead, they got a smile. One single smile, without a word, without a plea, without a tear, showed them everything, that they don't matter anymore, that they have no power, that the game is done. You don't need to block them. You don't need to reply. Just live, grow, win, and smile. Because that smile, that's your revenge. That's your closure. That's your final act. And oh, it's beautiful. Let me explain why your smile burns more than your silence ever could. Because they expected noise. They expected breakdowns, desperate messages, emotional scenes. But instead, you left them with stillness, with grace, with peace. And peace, my friend, is the loudest sound in a guilty person's mind. They can't drown it out. They can't mute it. It follows them everywhere. While they scroll through empty conversations and fake connections, your absence sits heavy. Not because you were loud, but because you were real. And nothing haunts a fake soul like the memory of someone genuine. That's your curse on them. That's the echo of your love, now turned into a mirror they can't break. They'll try to fill the void you left with distractions, new faces, temporary highs, attention from strangers. But they won't find peace, because peace never comes from replacing someone. It comes from deserving them in the first place, and they never did. That's the bitter pill. That's the thing that keeps their chest tight every time they remember how easily they had you and how stupidly they lost you. You didn't change because of hate. You changed because of pain. And pain teaches you what love never could. It teaches you limits, boundaries, distance. It teaches you that you can love deeply and still walk away without looking back. That's growth. And growth doesn't beg to be seen. It speaks through silence, through peace, through that damn smile. And they hate it. They hate that they can't shake the image of you smiling while they crumble. And don't for a second think they don't regret it. Oh, they do. Not always out loud, not always in front of people, but in those quiet moments when the phone doesn't ring, when no one checks on them like you did, when they're surrounded but still feel empty. That's when it hits. That's when your memory punches through their pride. And that smile, that one they didn't understand back then, that's the one they'll see in their mind every time they feel alone. Because it reminds them, you were the one. Not perfect, not without flaws, but real, rare, and gone. And nothing hurts more than realizing that what you took for granted is never coming back. That's what they deserve. That's justice. No drama, No revenge plots, just you, smiling in silence while the ghosts of their choices scream back at them in echoes only they can hear. You know what's scarier than revenge? Growth. Real, cold, unshakable growth. Not the type you post about for clout. Not the one wrapped in filters and fake positivity. I'm talking about the kind that's built in silence while nobody's watching. That lonely kind. That I cried so hard I forgot how to beg kind. That I stopped answering because nothing needed to be said anymore kind. That's the kind of growth that turns your whole aura into a warning. And that's what happened to you. You became the kind of soul they write regrets about. They thought you'd stay at the bottom, collecting pieces. But you built a kingdom from your ruins, and now they're stuck outside the gates, wishing they'd treated you better. And here's the joke. They can't even knock. That's how far you've come. You see, people don't understand the value of loyalty until they're on the outside of it. They don't respect your presence until they're forced to deal with your absence. And once you smile, not with joy, but with finality, that's the moment their soul collapses, because that smile is the eulogy to everything they took for granted. And it's too late for tears, too late for I miss you, too late for I've changed. You're gone. Not physically, maybe, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually, long gone. You've closed the book, burned the pages, and smiled while the ashes scattered. That's the art of survival. That's the masterpiece they never thought you had in you. And what's crazy is they'll never admit it, never say it out loud, never tell their new friends how bad they messed up. But it'll show. Oh, it'll bleed through the cracks, in the way they flinch when someone mentions your name, in the way they pause when they hear that song that used to be yours, in the way their smile dies when they see your life moving forward without them. That's how regret works. It's not loud. It's slow. It's a rot. It grows in their quiet moments, when they're lying in bed next to someone who doesn't understand their silence, when they're staring at a screen, looking for meaning, while your glow is somewhere else, lighting up rooms they no longer enter. That's justice. That's the result of their choices. And you're not bitter. You don't even hate them. You're just done. And that's worse, because hate still means they matter. But when you smile, calm, uninterested, healed, that's the day they realize they've truly lost. And there's no coming back from that. You've got to understand something. Your peace is priceless. Your presence was gold, and they played with it like it was cheap metal. But you were the real thing, the one who listened without faking it, the one who showed up without being asked, the one who stayed solid when everything else was shaky. And still, they treated you like a backup plan, like an option, like a fool. Until you smiled, until you stepped back, until you stopped explaining, stopped defending, stopped caring. That smile, that's when it all flipped. That's when the storm changed direction. And now they're living in the disaster they built, while you walk away like you never look back. And that's how you win. Not by proving anything, not by shouting your worth, but by being everything they said you couldn't be without them. That smile says it all. You had your chance, you blew it, and now I'm gone. That's not pride, that's closure, that's healing, that's strength built from pain, layered in scars, and sealed with silence. There's something you need to tattoo into your soul. Not everyone you lose is a loss. Some people are exits, dressed like blessings. Some are lessons wrapped in betrayal. And when life finally yanks them out of your space, it's not punishment, it's preparation, it's cleaning. See, when the wrong people leave, the right version of you gets the air it needs to breathe. The version that no longer says sorry for being too real. The one that stops giving chances like candy to those who only show up when they're hungry. That version. It was buried under all that pleasing, all that begging, all that hoping. And the only way it could rise was through pain, through betrayal, through being overlooked and discarded like a side note in someone else's selfish story. But here's the irony. They were never the main character. You were. Always. They just didn't read the script right. And now they're stuck flipping pages in a book that doesn't have their name in it anymore. Your story moved on. You didn't just survive. You turned the damn pain into power. And when you did that, when you learned how to walk alone and not fall apart, that's when your smile turned lethal. Because nothing scares them more than the version of you that doesn't need them, that doesn't flinch when they ghost you, that doesn't chase, doesn't explain, doesn't reply. You've become what they feared, free. And freedom looks damn good on you, but you didn't get here easy. Oh no, you bled for this. Every inch of this calm was carved through chaos. You built this version of you in the fire they tossed you in. And the part that haunts them most, you didn't come out angry. You came out glowing. That's different. That's haunting. They expected a monster. Instead, they got a masterpiece. And every time they scroll and see you smiling, living, thriving, they remember what they did, they remember how they left, and they remember how you stood there, broken, quiet, shaking, but never stopped loving until you did. That's the kill shot, not the goodbye. Not the silence, but the moment you stopped caring. When your "I hope you're okay" turned into "I hope you learn." When your "I miss you" turned into "I forgive me." When your heart stopped reaching and your soul started rebuilding. That shift, that transition from victim to victor, that's what keeps them awake. That's what drowns them in the very silence they once used to control you. So don't hide your smile. Don't tone it down for people who couldn't handle the version of you that still had hope. Let them see it. Let it burn into their memory, because behind that grin is a graveyard of everything they underestimated. They didn't see the war, they didn't see the breakdowns, they didn't hear the late-night prayers, they didn't witness the screams you swallowed just to look normal. But they see the smile, and that's enough. Because real strength doesn't need to be explained. It shows, it radiates, it intimidates, and most importantly, it never begs. You don't need to explain your healing. Let your distance speak. Let your glow sting. Let your peace echo. Because every step you take in silence, every breath you take in freedom, every smile you give without apology, that's revenge. That's closure. That's the kind of haunting they'll never escape. Not in this life. Not in the next. You know what makes your smile even more powerful? The fact that it doesn't come from forgetting. It comes from remembering everything and choosing peace anyway. It's not fake. It's not forced. It's built. Brick by brick, moment by moment. You earned that smile. You earned it every time you swallowed your truth just to keep the peace. Every time you held back tears because they didn't deserve to see them. Every time you gave love to someone who was only there for the benefits, not the bond. That's what fuels it. And that's why it haunts them. Because they know what they did. Oh, they know. Maybe they act numb. Maybe they pretend they don't care. But believe me, guilt has a memory. It rewinds. It replays. And it doesn't need a sound to scream. It just needs a moment of silence. The kind of silence you gave them when you stopped checking in. The kind of silence you gave them when you stopped asking what's wrong. The kind that feels like peace to you and punishment to them. You see, they weren't used to people who loved hard and left quiet. They expected drama. They expected chaos. But what they got was silence, a smile, a ghost that didn't die, just outgrew them. And now they carry that image everywhere. Your calm is their karma. Your glow is their guilt. That's the price of playing with someone real. They didn't just lose you. They lost the version of themselves that existed when they had you. That's the kind of grief you can't bury. But let's talk about you now, not them. You've suffered enough for people who couldn't even say thank you. You've sacrificed enough for souls who would never cut their comfort for you. And yet, you gave. With pure heart, with open hands, you gave when you were empty, loved when you were drained, and stayed when all signs told you to leave. That's your strength. That's the part they couldn't break, because no matter how many times they left you on read, ignored your effort, mocked your care, you still showed up, you still hoped, you still loved. And that's not weakness, my friend. That's rare. That's dangerous. Because when someone with that much love learns to aim it inward, they become untouchable. You're not cold now, you're calculated. You don't stop caring, you care correctly. You don't stop loving, you love with boundaries. And that shift, that's what they'll never recover from. Because now, no one gets the old version of you for free. They have to earn it. They have to show up. They have to be real. Or they can leave, quietly, permanently. No more open doors for half-hearted people. No more over-explaining to those who already made up their minds. No more shrinking your light to fit inside someone else's shadow. That era is over. That chapter's done. And your smile, that's the final punctuation. So what now? You keep walking. You keep healing. You keep smiling. Not because life's perfect, but because you are no longer waiting for apologies to feel whole. You forgave them silently, not for them, but for you. You buried the past without needing a crowd. And that's the scariest thing about you now. You don't need closure. You don't need explanations. You don't need them to see your worth, because you already do. And that kind of confidence, that kind of peace, that's what they'll never have again. That's what they'll chase in others, but never find. Because no one loves like you. No one shows up like you. No one replaces a soul like yours. You were the rarest thing in their life, and they treated you like a placeholder. And now your smile lives in their nightmares. Not because it's cruel, but because it's calm, unbothered, done. You ever wonder why they keep watching? Why they still check your stories, peek at your profile, ask about you in whispers like ghosts looking for permission to exist again? It's not because they care. It's because they can't stand that you healed without needing them. That's the twist. That's what eats them alive. They didn't think you'd survive the storm. Hell, they didn't even think you'd want to. They thought they were your only light. But now they see it. You became the sun. You didn't crawl back. You didn't knock. You didn't scream for closure or cry for a second chance. You just disappeared into your power. That's the part that breaks them. You see, most people are fine with hurting you as long as you stay broken. But once you rebuild, once you rise, once you smile like the war didn't even shake you, that's when they start to fall apart. That's when they realize you were never the weak one. You were just the one who believed. You believed in love, in loyalty, in effort. And they used that belief like a leash. But now the leash is gone. Now the hope is dead. And what's left? A version of you they can't manipulate anymore. One that stares through them. One that walks past them like they're invisible. One that wears peace like armor and silence like a blade. That's the version they feared. That's the version they created. And that's the version they'll regret for the rest of their lives. But let's not pretend this was easy. Healing? It was war. Every day was a battlefield. You had to kill the old you, the one who begged, who waited, who kept the door unlocked. You had to destroy your softness just to find your spine. You had to unlearn your habit of fixing others while breaking yourself. That's not healing. That's surgery without anesthesia. That's pulling the knife out yourself while everyone else watches and calls you dramatic. But you did it quietly, with no applause. No one clapped for your silence. No one celebrated your growth. Because growth ain't glamorous. It's brutal. It's lonely. It's crying at 3 a.m. and still showing up at 7 with a straight face. It's giving yourself closure because the person who hurt you is too busy playing victim. It's looking in the mirror and deciding you deserve more, even if no one agrees. And that's exactly what you did. You healed alone. You leveled up in shadows. And when you came back, you weren't looking for revenge, you were looking for nothing. And nothing is scarier than someone who no longer wants anything from you. Not love, not attention, not an explanation. Just distance. That's when they lose. Not when you fight back, not when you post about it, but when you say absolutely nothing and smile. You know what I love about you now? The way you move. The way you don't chase anything anymore. The way you let people go without dragging your soul behind them. That's rare. That's power. Most people stay addicted to pain because they think letting go means losing, but not you. You let go with grace, and you smile like you finally remembered who the hell you are. That's what they didn't want. That's what they feared from the beginning. That you'd wake up. That you'd stop seeing yourself through their broken eyes. And when you did, everything changed. You stopped needing closure from people who were never open in the first place. You stopped texting people who left you on read, like you were an option. You stopped breaking for people who wouldn't bend for you. And in return, you smiled. A new kind of smile. One that said, I'm done playing small to make others comfortable. And that, my friend, that smile is a scream in their heads every night. It's a reminder that they lost, not you, them, because you walked away and they stayed the same. And now the only thing they have left is a memory of you they'll never get to touch again. You know what's the final nail in their coffin? The moment they realize you never needed them to win. That all this time, they were just a distraction dressed like destiny. You weren't depending on them. You were delaying yourself for them. You were lowering your standards, dimming your light, shrinking your voice just to keep a place in their world. But the second you stopped trying, the second you stood up, looked around and said, wait, what am I doing here? Everything shifted. They weren't the prize. You were. They just sold you the illusion that you weren't worth anything without their approval. That you were hard to love. That you were too emotional, too intense, too complicated. But here's the truth. You were just too real for people who were too used to playing. They weren't ready for someone who meant every word, who showed up with loyalty instead of lies, who loved with both hands and asked for nothing fake in return. And when they couldn't handle it, they painted you as the problem. But now you've become the mirror they avoid, because your existence reminds them of how much better they could have been if they didn't take you for granted. If they didn't play dumb when they knew they were wrong. If they didn't confuse being loved deeply with being entitled to disrespect. But that chance is gone now. You're no longer sitting at that table. You've built your own. And at that table, no fakes, no masks, no guilt trippers, just growth, just truth, just you, and that calm, cutting, untouchable smile. You know what makes that smile more dangerous than any insult, any revenge, any scream? It says, I remember what you did. I remember how you made me question myself. I remember how you twisted my care into weakness. But I'm not broken. I'm just done. And done is lethal. Done doesn't need closure. Done doesn't check who's watching. Done doesn't pray for karma. It becomes it. And now they're stuck with the version of themselves that let you go. That's the trap they can't escape. Because people like them, they expect chaos. They feed on it. They thrive on getting reactions. So when you go cold, when you laugh instead of cry, when you look through them like they were never there, that's a wound they can't bandage. That's a punishment they can't escape. They thought silence was power until they met yours. They thought indifference was cool until they saw it in your eyes. Now, everything they tried to throw at you, manipulation, shame, doubt, it's all boomeranging back. Not because you cursed them, but because they cursed themselves the moment they chose to betray the one person who was real in their corner. And let's not forget what they told people about you. All the lies, all the twisted stories, all the fake narratives just to make themselves feel like the victim. They painted you as clingy, as dramatic, as unstable. They told everyone you were too much, when in truth you were just enough, but for someone real. They buried your name in dirt, hoping it would rot. But the joke's on them. You didn't rot. You rooted. You grew. You bloomed. You became stronger in the silence. And now people are starting to see. The lies are cracking. The masks are slipping. And guess whose name still echoes in conversations and memories and regrets? Yours. Not because you chased validation, but because you became unforgettable. You became the one who loved the deepest, stayed the longest, and left the calmest. And nothing in this world haunts a shallow soul more than the memory of someone they couldn't break, someone they couldn't replace, someone who still smiles like they were never touched by the storm. That's your power now. That's your legacy. You smiled. And the world they built on your pain started to fall.